Welcome to this episode of Unraveling Adoption, an intentional space to delve into adoption's complexities together. I'm Beth Syverson. I'm an adoptive mom of a curious and insightful 20-year-old son, Joe, who is launching into adulthood. I'm walking beside him while working on my own personal growth and healing. I'm also a certified coach helping primarily adoptive parents. Joe and I are committed to helping anyone impacted by adoption, and we want to help the general public understand adoption's complexities better too. Today, we're going to be talking about adult topics. So if you have little ears nearby, or if you're listening at work, you might want to pause and listen to this episode at a later time. So have you ever thought about the connection between adoption and the adoptee's sex life? If you're an adoptee, how is intimacy going for you? And if you're an adoptive parent of a minor child, how are you helping them have healthy views about intimacy and their body as they're growing up? Today's guest is a transracial adoptee and a sex therapist, Anna Linde. She was adopted from Brazil to Sweden, and she grew up as practically the only Black kid in all of Sweden. Is that really true?
It's pretty close, though. It's pretty close, though.
It felt like it?
Yeah.
Pretty close. Okay. She world schools her two young children, and they are living in Thailand right now. She's been a therapist for years, but recently added dance and movement therapy and a sexology certification to her credentials. Today, she will help us begin to understand the issues at the intersection of adoption and sexuality. So welcome to Unraveling Adoption, Anna. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. What a nice intro you did. You just like that. Perfect.
Very good. Very good. Well, we've never had a guest explicitly talking about this unique intersection between adoption and sexuality before. So I'm grateful that you're here to help us all understand this better. I don't know, are there any other adoptees doing this kind of work, or are you the only one in the whole wide world?
I didn't find anyone so far.
Okay.
Trying to look, because for me, sexual and reproductive health, or our sexuality, is so connected with attraction, with attachment style, with self-esteem, with the wish for connecting and creating long-term bonds. So for me, when I opened the door for my master in sexology, I had a very clear idea that this has to be connected in some way.
Yeah.
I wasn't just really sure.
But there was no research or anything that you found? They were like the first person researching this topic?
I found a dissertation from the UK. Yes, but it's a couple of years. It's like from 2017, I think.
Okay.
It's really good. But I didn't really have the chance to try to connect with that person or to see if he's continuing to develop his ideas.
Okay.
So when I did my master thesis, I interviewed 20 international adoptees in Sweden. And it was the most interesting conversations ever, because it's such a big field, even though it sounds like it's sex, but it's really big.
Oh, I'm sure there's many, many tentacles that go out. Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. And I'm so grateful that you're doing this work. It is very important work. And you hope more people will do it, yeah? Or do you like having the monopoly on it right now?
No, actually, I think the more people that work with empowering liberation from whatever side they're doing, then we are contributing to something really important.
I agree.
And I choose sexology because I'm very interested about embodiment and how my body is carrying trauma, or what is stored in how my body remembers this situation or that situation. And for me, when I was thinking about sex as a topic or as a field, I was thinking about how many connections point that there are with sex that is also connecting with my position today.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your history as an adoptee. How old were you when you were adopted? That kind of thing. How was your childhood? Give us the Reader's Digest version.
Yes. So I came to Sweden when I was 6 weeks old.
Oh, that's very young.
Yes, that's like a mini person in mini. So I grew up with my parents, is a single kid in that family, in a nice neighborhood in Stockholm, which also made me, like you said, being basically the only Black person or Black child in that class or in that school.
Okay.
So growing up like that gives you a kind of a white gaze on how I was viewing things, which was also something I had to think a lot about when I was doing the thesis. Because if white is what I think is normal, which it maybe is, or that doesn't really matter, but it's interesting because do my body feel safe choosing a partner that is so different for me, or what kind of challenges did that bring short-termly and long-termly?
Oh, interesting. Let's talk just a little bit more about that white gaze, because my son and I have had conversations around this too. My son is Japanese. I'm white. And he sometimes says he looks in the mirror and he feels white. Like he doesn't even see himself as an Asian sometimes. He also grew up in a very, very white, racist school. Does that resonate for you too?
Yeah, I think many people are feeling that they cannot really connect with how they look or how their body is formed or shaped, because how we look at the reality or in the context around that doesn't really mirror how we look. Since we are acting based on the class or the context where we grew up, then it also might not be a total match with our background or the country where we came from. So it can be kind of complicated to figure out who you actually are and what is actually important. Is it the color? Probably not. But for some, yes, probably, depending on which time in life we are in and where we are going.
And the body shape is also probably a really big thing. I bet Swedish people looked different than you in their body.
Yeah, and I mean the standard or the idea of what beauty means in different countries or in Europe or in however we would compare it might not be at all the ideal of how my body is shaped. Like my length, for example, I'm 155 centimeters, which is not so tall. And I think what is normal in Sweden is maybe to be 170 centimeters at least.
Oh, yeah. Swedish people are tall.
Yeah, they are. And then you're standing out in a way that makes you feel that you're not as you should or not normal because you are the one that gets different from the group. And it's very hard to feel value in being not as everybody else when you can actually not choose it on your own.
Yeah, you have no control over that. Yeah. No. So you're like 5 feet. You're about 5 feet tall for those of us in the US that have not joined the metric system yet. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You think Swedish people, you think tall. Yeah. I bet that must have felt strange. And then I've also heard people in the opposite situation. They're the really big one in a tiny little family. And that must really feel strange. And that body image, how does that affect sexuality? Can you draw the link to that?
Yes. First of all, the idea of what beauty is or beauty means or how we should look or how we should dress or how we should do our hair is connecting so much with the context and the norms that are in that society in that specific time. But for me, for example, who never really had the opportunity to learn how to do my own hair, then going to the hairdresser or trying to figure my hair out wasn't really pleasurable because it was always somebody or a situation that made me feel uncomfortable because I actually didn't know how to deal with it either.
Yeah.
And when you're not feeling that you fit or that you are accepted or that you are in the group, then that can very easily create shame in our bodies. Shame affects sexuality or our opportunities or possibilities to meet others in intimacy.
Yeah, it just shuts it down.
Yes. Exactly.
It's like, oh, closing this door. Nope.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. What about people who are not transracially adopted? Maybe they even blend in with their family. Maybe people wouldn't even know they were adopted. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Would their body image or their sexuality still be affected by adoption? Are there other things besides the body differences?
I would say yes, because we are all coming with the package of unwished separations at some point in our life, which is connecting with attachment theory and how we can make meaning of our relationships or close relationships or the survival in having relationships when you are small and you need your parents or caregivers. So I think every adoptee has at some point some kind of struggle in how do I connect, or how do I keep it, or how should I do to maintain this, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we can also have a feeling that we're not really home, even if we are in a family where we look at each other like visually for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
All of these things matter in how my self-esteem is developed. And my self-esteem is connected with my sexual self-esteem. So for me, it's all connecting all the time.
It's all connected. Okay. And so from either your personal experience or from working with adoptees, what are the common sexual problems that people are having?
For some, or for maybe the majority of the clients I meet, they get so scared or feel so much fear in their bodies that, when they're on their way into building deeper relationships, so that they disconnect. And then they don't feel that they can actually continue in that relationship. But it could also be people, adults now, but teenagers before, that was using sex as a way to establish a stronger connecting.
Yeah.
Because it's an easy way to feel that we're melting together.
Yeah. So I can see people go one way or the other, one extreme or the other, like, okay, nope, I can't go that direction towards sex at all. And then other people like, okay, I'm going to use sex as a way to attach.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the most healthy way to attach, maybe like promiscuity.
Yeah. It is important to remember that this is not usually so conscious.
Right.
So people can end up having more sexual relationships or connections or meetings than they would actually wish for. But they don't really know what is pulling them towards taking these steps in this speed, or doing this, or just not feeling safe enough to express boundaries. Because we're coming from a constellation where we actually didn't choose what was going to happen or which family.
Yeah, no choice. So
then it's also a boundary question.
Yeah, I can imagine adoptees, especially teenagers that are trying to sort out their identity in the first place. And they might say, well, I can't say no to this person because if I say no, then no one will love me, or, that I don't have any power to say no. And that can get you into some big problems, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also connecting with our self-worth, like self-care and self-worth. Because if I know that I have the value to choose myself and I'm me always, and it doesn't matter what other people think of me, then I will probably feel safer when I need to express a no, or take a step back, or ask for more time, or tell somebody that I'm not ready. But if I doubt that value in myself, then these situations will be more challenging as well.
And that self-doubt is so common for adoptees. I mean, that's that core issue of, well, I'm not worthy. I was given away. So what do I have to say about anything? Right. And I think a lot of people, it takes longer to find their authentic self because of all of that baggage from being relinquished.
Yeah.
But ideally, they would find their authentic self and then be completely in control of all of their choices. But that, how often does that happen for anybody, really?
That was my point. It's like, that's a hard road for anyone, I think.
Everybody.
Yeah. And I think it's always possible to do something to challenge how we are thinking or choosing in the world we are living in now. But since sex and sexual and reproductive health is usually kind of stuffed with shame or guilt or anxiety, then we might not even be able to talk about sex with our parents or our caregivers, because our caregivers could be scared to talk about it, or feel that they don't know what to say, or how do I approach this topic in a good way, or, parenting things that we're all are sorting out for ourselves. And a teenager who may be not feeling that this person can actually embody and understand what I'm going through, or this racist slur that happened to me when I was on a date, or somebody asking me to do something which was totally not what I wanted, but was a stereotypical idea, then I really don't know how to even describe this for my caregivers so they can give me support.
Yeah. Are there stereotypical sexual things that go along with race?
Yes, a lot of them.
Really? Like what?
There's a lot of them. And I think everybody who, if we think about our teenagers, for example, who are using porn for whatever reason they are using it for, then those stereotypes are very alive in pornography, for example.
Okay.
But it could also be an idea that Asian women are in a certain way. They are easy or
Submissive.
grateful or submissive. They can, it's very stereotypical ideas that we don't always talk about so openly, so that we know how we can push them back or create our own wishes and what I'm longing for. And that's especially hard in an intimate situation. If, like an example from my life, when I was younger and I was on a date with somebody where I really appreciated, it was a great talk and all of this. And in the end of the date, he gave me a comment like, I never had sex with a black girl and I would like to eat your chocolate skin or something. And then that's, it's supposed to be a compliment, I think, but it doesn't taste at all like a compliment.
It's like a microaggression.
Yeah, and it awakens a question on me, like, do you want to be with me or do you just want to fetishize me for my color?
Yeah. Are you just seeing me as a black woman or are you seeing me as me?
Yeah. So there is a lot of things going on in the sexual spaces or pornography or whatever space we're in that can be really hard for our teenagers to talk about with their caregivers and parents. Yeah. Because how do we explain this if we have parents that maybe is not as conscious about what's actually happening or the stereotypes? And maybe we weren't as well, because the white gaze is not making us so clear on what's actually going on.
Yeah. Oh, I see how complicated it is. Are you interested or willing to talk about your own dating life? Do you date Black people? Do you date white people? Like, who are you attracted to? And I'm curious, do you go back to your roots or what you grew up with?
Yes. And this is really interesting because when I think about, do I go back to my roots, then I'm not even sure what that means anymore.
Yeah, 6 weeks old, you don't remember.
Yeah, and then it's like, is it the country or is it the color?
Oh, yeah.
What is roots then?
Yeah.
And if we twist the question to, do you date somebody that you can recognize yourself in?
Yeah.
Then for me, at first sight, that's personality.
Okay.
What do I need in a person to feel that I'm safe with this person?
Okay.
But my partner is from Austria. He lives in Germany.
Okay.
We dated maybe 2 years now.
Okay.
I have 2 sons that are 13 and 11.
Okay.
And their dad is from Finland. So we met in Sweden. So I have been thinking about this a lot because from one perspective, it makes sense to date somebody that has the same culture or same background as I have, because then we understand each other and we understand each other's values or ideas of what life means or whatever we want to call it. But for me to be around people with the same color as me, that gives me a totally different experience, like an embodied experience. So I'm not sure. I don't think you need to choose like that to be safe. But I think you need to be very open to understand what a safe space means for you, so that you can choose a partner and talk about it. Like, what does it mean? Is it uncomfortable to sit in the family dinners with all of the relatives when I am the only person not looking like the others? Probably.
Yeah.
Like it probably is at some point. And how can we make those transitions or points more safe or more comfortable for both of us?
It seems to me that it takes a lot of conscious work to really dissect this for adoptees, especially transracial adoptees or intercountry adoptees. A lot of conscious work, not just like floating around like, I'll figure it out as I go along. I guess you figure it out. But I think if you get help, some therapy, someone to help you work through all these issues, that things might go a lot smoother. Is that why you're choosing this field of sexology to help people with these kinds of issues?
Yeah, and for me, because there is so much about sexuality or reproductive health, like, do I dare to be a parent or do I have it in me? Am I going to leave my kids? There's a lot of unspoken fears that we're also carrying in our bodies, connecting with sex or intimacy or family or roots or home. It's so connected in so many ways. So for me, I love coaching people, clients, couples to figure out, how do you feel home in your body? What does it mean for you?
Wow.
And how can we integrate movement in that? How can we transform the shame that you're carrying? How can we identify how a yes feels in your body when you want to say yes? That's what I love about this work.
Yeah.
And sex, since it's so many norms and ideas about it that are hurtful for so many people, like the heterosexuality norm, which is basically saying that this is what we should be and everything else is not what we should be. And if we think about that, it's the norm that is creating the issue. It's not how we would like to have it or how we are feeling safe in our expressions. It's the norm that is the problem.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then the support to sort out those norms and transform the shame can be very healing for many.
Yeah. That shame is just the crux of it, isn't it? That shame. And you mentioned reproductive health. And I just realized that for adoptees, having children is often a very big transition point. Like, wow, can I be a parent? How could my mother have given away this child that I'm holding?
Yes.
I've heard that story many times and how important that is. I didn't think of the sexology piece and reproduction and parenting. It all goes together, right?
It does.
It's all of a piece. Wow.
Yeah. And so many fears that we may not be able to get supported in because I actually don't know my background or if there are health issues in my family or relatives. So when I get those questions when I was pregnant, I'm totally unable to answer. But I also feel like I should know this. Like I should be able to give my medical background and make the best decisions for my children.
Yeah.
So it's double all the time.
So many different layers. Wow. Okay. So first, what can adoptive parents of little kids do to help them build healthier sexual identities?
This is a great question. I have had a couple of parenting groups where we have been talking about how we can support our children in growing healthy boundaries, healthy interest or focus for sex or intimacy, and what is age appropriate for this group. And I think an important point here is that the arousal of anxiety that we can feel when we're stressed or scared, it's easy to use sex or masturbation as a way to unload that in our bodies.
Okay. Yeah.
Because an orgasm is a way to release what we're feeling in our bodies. Exactly like taking a cold shower or crying or laughing or different. So I think many parents feel very scared or get really stressed if it's something that looks like a child has problem with sexuality or sexual identity or acting out in school or something, because it's so much shame and it's so much guilt and it's so much about not wanting this to happen, whatever it is. So usually I talk about the connection between anxiety and sexual arousal so that we can sort out if this is only about the specific behavior in the specific situation or if this is just normal play developing. Then we can put on a list on that, like what should you remember and what are red flags here and all of this. But if it is connecting with anxiety, then we should talk about the anxiety and how to get that level less in the ordinary life so that we can see a change in how we are transforming or handling the stress.
Oh, I bet anxiety shows up all over the place in sex for everybody. Yeah, I bet. So adoptive parents can focus on boundaries and anxiety.
Yeah, that's a short answer to it, because a lot of the stress that you feel as a parent or that I feel as a parent or that you feel as a parent is, am I doing this good enough?
Yeah.
Do I know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Or like, oh my God, how will I handle this? Or, all of these ideas of being good enough as a parent or caregiver, which is also a lot of stress when you have adoptive children.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety on the parents.
Yeah. So when I hold this group, yes. So when I hold those groups, it's such an important space for the parents just to be able to express what actually happened, not being judged, not getting, you should have done this, because it's not like that.
Yeah.
And also to talk about how is this affecting you as a parent, that this situation appeared in school or preschool or whatever. Like, how would you deal with this if this was something else that wasn't awakening so much shame and fear in your body?
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's like it goes in two directions all the time.
Yeah. It's a little contagious, right?
Yeah.
The parents' shame or parents' anxiety can get transmitted down.
Yes. And the norms, because it's normal to do things in a certain way, which is probably reasonable when it comes to school or rules or regulations or whatever. But many parents can feel so scared when their children are playing, like, what do you call it? House? Like when you're playing parents and because they are really scared that something will happen. Or that my child that has a problem with impulsivity, for example, how will I know that my child will be able to listen to a no in this situation? So there's a lot of things going on in the parents' or caregivers' bodies as well that needs to be held to be able to choose what path or what choice is the best.
Well, if people wanted to work with you, you're in Thailand, but you work online, right?
Yes, I do.
Exclusively online or almost all online?
Almost all online. If you happen to be in Thailand, then I'm happy to see somebody here, of course.
Okay.
But I work mainly online because all of the things that I study and learn so far is possible to do online.
Sure.
It's so much about the techniques and form for how we can catch each other. But to hold a parenting group, for example, with this focus, it's totally possible to do online without making things tricky.
Yeah.
So I released a coaching group for adult adoptees a couple of weeks ago, where we talk about all of these things, attachment theory and shame and, sexual self-esteem and intimacy and
nice.
That's really interesting, because then I could put together all of the things that I think is important.
Okay. Well, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, I was going to say Instagram, but I actually suck at Instagram. So I think LinkedIn, Facebook, or the presentation for the coaching group, where I also have a presentation on myself, is a good choice.
Okay. Is that a video?
No, it's pinned down what it is and what's included, and then more about my background and what I have been doing and stuff.
Okay. And are you just Anna Linde in Facebook and LinkedIn?
Anna Linde in Facebook. In Instagram, I have Lindes, so my last name is Lindes _therapy.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is my Anna Linde, the name I have.
I'll put links to all those.
Yes, please do.
I'm excited to let you all know that Anna Linde and I are creating a webinar featuring her teaching sexual and reproductive health for adoptees. This webinar will be for adoptive parents and caretakers of adopted children and youth. And it's going to be on Wednesday, June 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific, which is 8 p.m. Eastern Time. God only knows what time that is in Thailand, but Anna said she'd be willing to do this. So we're very excited. So mark your calendar, June 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific, and check out unravelingadoption.com/events for more information. All right. Well, thank you very much, Anna, for being here. I think it's the middle of the night for you in Thailand, so thank you for being here. It's been great getting to know you. And you're in my Healing the Adoption Constellation database, by the way, if anyone's interested in finding Anna there. And there's 72 other people there. It's awesome. unravelingadoption.com/healing. And there are people that practice all sorts of modalities. So go find that. And unravelingadoption.com is where everything is. And we offer all sorts of events and, of course, the podcast, and just want to reach out and help the adoption constellation, the community, as much as possible. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Please share this episode with anyone you know who might maybe have a teenage adoptee or a younger adoptee that might want to get more aligned with their values and helping their kids grow up, or any adult adoptees who might have intimacy issues that might want to know that there's somebody out there that's also an adoptee that is working in this field of sexology. I think it's really great that you're doing this. And maybe someday we'll say, oh, remember when you were practically the only one doing this, and now there's dozens of people helping people around the world. So you're like a pioneer.
Yes, that would be awesome,
Yay.
actually.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, thanks again, Anna. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Anna and I want you all to stay safe.